I'm Michelle Hussain with the latest edition of From Our Home Correspondent here on BBC Radio 4. In the summer of 1940, the remarkable and heroic battle for British skies was unfolding high above the Garden of England. Among those who died defending the country against the Nazis were a significant number whose planes came down on a sandbank off the Kent coast. Today, the location of the Goodwins has placed it at the centre of a new conflict, this time between campaigners and developers. Susie Mesure, who has her own family links to the Battle of Britain, has been there.
Through my binoculars, far, far in the distance, I can just make out the gleaming white frills of the breakers, like an Elizabethan ruff against the blue horizon. As a child, I could see the masts sticking out of the sands while walking along the promenade, says the person next to me. We're gazing out of a beachfront house in Deal, not far from Dover's famous white cliffs. It's what we can't see, however, that has brought me here. The Goodwin's partially submerged sands have wrecked thousands of ships over the centuries. Turner painted broken spars against the sunset sky. In The Merchant of Venice, Shakespeare called this place a very dangerous, flat and fatal. The Goodwins are also the likely final resting place of scores of airmen shot down during the Battle of Britain. They include Flying Officer John Kerr Wilson, who crashed into the sands in May 1940, aged 25. His body was never recovered, and his family doesn't want the site disturbed. But the Port of Dover has other plans. It wants to expand the town's western docks, replacing the old hoverport with a new cargo terminal and distribution centre, plus a new marina pier. The project will need up to 2.5 million cubic metres of aggregate, ideally dredged from the Goodwin's southern tip. The proposal is proving controversial, not least because nobody can guarantee sucking up that much aggregate wouldn't disturb Flying Officer Kerr Wilson and others like him. The issue is fraying nerves locally. Even the campaign against the digging sounds urgent. It's called SOS, Save Our Sands. My own grandfather was a navigator in Bomber Command and flew over the Goodwins dozens of times. Although he's still with us today, thinking about him helps me to understand why opposition has been so vociferous. Then there are the seals and other species that wildlife experts believe could suffer during years of dredging, especially as the site is tipped to become a protected marine conservation zone because of its special habitats. Work on Dover's ambitious regeneration project has already started, but the port needs a dredging licence from the government's Marine Maritime Organisation. A decision is likely in the new year. As our hands cradle warming tea in his first-floor living room, the sea framed in the window, Richard Taylor-Jones says he's worried Dover Harbour Board hasn't explored every alternative to dredging the Goodwins. He's an environmentalist and wildlife presenter who grew up in Deal and knows the sands well. Are there other options closer to Dover that are just more expensive, he wonders. What about aggregate from the Crossrail project, for example? But he also points out that the Goodwins were dredged in the 1970s and 80s to build the town's eastern docks. They recovered. Romanticism is clashing with reason. The Harbour Board is pinning its hopes on a report by Dutch consultants Royal Haskening that argues the risk of a big archaeological discovery is low. Its proposed dredge zone avoids known wrecks, but everything hinges on also avoiding 7 so-called anomalies that have been detected using various sonar systems. These unidentified objects could be of archaeological interest, or they could be nothing much. Either way, the plan is to steer clear. Which brings us back to those missing airmen. At the Ministry of Defence, Sue Raftery heads the section responsible for casualties among the armed forces. My concern is there may well still be human remains on any aircraft lost, she says. For its part, the Harbour Board is sure it won't find any bones and has no plans to retrieve anything anyway. Before heading home, I drive to Dover and watch the diggers already working on the new docks. The lights at the harbour entrance flash red, then green, and then red again. Could that be prophetic?
Susie Mesure.